Hello and welcome to the Let That Shift Go podcast. I'm Noel.
And I'm Lena.
And this is where we talk about the good, the bad, and all the shift in between.
We'll just talk mad shift.
Let's get into it. And on today's episode, what the fuck do I need? Yeah, we'll get into that topic a little bit later, talking about the basic human core needs. But first, let's dive into the skin deep cards. I'll go first.
Okay.
If you could go back in time and give yourself advice about our relationship, what would it be and when?
Oh, okay. So the first thing that comes up for me is do not make a joke about a memory from your childhood that you thought was funny, but was actually pretty hurtful.
Oh, you mean the story that keeps getting told over and over again?
Yeah.
That you didn't know?
Yeah. And
was a trigger for me?
Yeah, I didn't know. And oftentimes we find these stories with our siblings or, friends or family are like, remember that time you did that thing that was so stupid or, whatever. And you think it's funny. And actually you're not really aware that that's actually really hurtful to them or it's bringing up something painful that's, it's not funny to them.
So what advice, because that's when, but what advice would you give yourself?
I think I would ask myself to look at how that experience probably was for you and to say or I would have said, hey, you should ask him if that's okay that you're doing that. Or, hey, does that make you feel bad or something? But, I think especially with siblings, we just take it for granted. Like, oh, you're fine, and that was really not an aware place to be.
Yeah, but we were kids.
See, but that's what we say. Oh, we were kids. We didn't know.
Yeah.
But, if I could have looked at myself and been like, yeah, I really hate that story that the family tells about how I ran over our family dog. And it's like, I never ran over the family dog. And it just became a joke. Mm-hmm. But really for me, it was like, that's really hurtful, you know? And yeah, so I should have just been like, yeah, did you like that? When they told you that they told everyone you ran over the dog? And it's like, no, well, you shouldn't talk about that thing for him, So it wasn't until really within the last 2 years, I was like, yeah, that is hurtful, So
yeah. Well, I forgive you.
Thank you.
Ho'oponopono.
Which you know better, you do better.
Yeah, please forgive me. I love you. Sorry, and thank you.
Yes.
In no particular order. All right, what's your question?
My question is, what do you feel is the difference between fixing and healing?
Wow. Fixing. That's a hard one.
Is it?
Well, I guess fixing is a temporary thing. With you're really going after the symptoms and just, dealing with the things that are showing presently. Mm-hmm. But I think healing is going back deep, going to source. Where did that feeling come from? When's the first time you felt it?
Yeah.
How do you recognize it? What did it feel like for you in your body back then and now? How do you recognize it? How is it the same? How is it different? Like getting back to the core, I think is how you heal, as opposed to fixing, which might be just.
Yeah, it's like kind of like if you had a leak in the faucet and you're like, just turn off the water to the house. Okay, there's no more dripping. Also, there's no more water. So I don't know.
Yeah, we need water to survive. That's a pretty big one.
Yeah, we fixed it. Well, but we have no water. So yeah, okay. Well, I like that.
So let's get into this core needs. As human beings, we all have some core needs that we need, that are necessary for us to feel safe, right?
Loved, fulfilled.
Yeah. And lots of people talk about this. Freud,
Maslow's hierarchy.
Yeah. So there's lots of, evidence and books based on this basic human needs. And, I would like to just talk a little bit about why. Why do you think these core human needs are important? And then let's go over them. Let's go over each one of the core needs and see how they apply to you or to me. All right.
All right, let's do it. Well, the thing is, we all tend to have one or two. that are the most important. And when we were talking about this earlier, it really brought up the way, when you read the 5 love languages,
Yeah.
and many people have read it. We've talked about it before in the podcast. But what I found is when you recognize your love language and you realize that's how you receive love, then you're a little bit more aware of like why your behaviors are the way they are. Why do you need touch? Why do you need words of affirmation? Things like that.
Why do you like gifts?
You become aware of how you
Acts of
receive
service.
love or how you feel those emotions. And also it gives you some insight as to even your children. What's their love language? How do you speak to them in that language so they get what they need?
Yeah.
Right. And so when we were talking about these core needs, it made me think about that. Like, oh, this is why I would want to know that. But it's not something that I'm like consciously thinking of as like, that's a core need. Like Maslow's hierarchy of needs is like, shelter, safety, love, food, blah, blah, blah. Really, the basic things. But these are going a lot more into like kind of the behavioral. And so when we were bringing these up, it was funny to kind of think about like, well, what are my top 2? So let's talk about what they are. Okay, so first one is certainty.
Yeah, certainty.
And what do you think that is?
The need for certainty is driven by our desire to feel safe and secure.
In the future.
In the future, yeah, exactly. A sense of control.
Control. Yeah, we love that.
Over what's to come.
You want to feel reassured, free from threats.
Yeah, and understand the people and concepts around us.
Yeah, that one I can very much relate to.
Yeah, I think when I read that, I was like, ooh, that's Lena, because you have this deep need to know everything.
Yeah. It's not just circumstances, it's information. It's like, well, what does it mean? Like anything. You tell me to do something, I want to know why. I need a sense of certainty. I also think that comes back to having been in the field that I was working in for so long, which was critical care and flight nursing. And mostly a lot of what I was picking up was people who didn't have certainty in what they were doing and ended up hurt, or worse. And so that kind of built in me probably a stronger need for certainty.
Even more than childhood, or as much.
Well, it probably contributed, because I found as I got older, I was, in that field of work that I became a lot more cautious and probably would not do things that I maybe would have done before just because of knowing where that could end up. So it did kind of build this cautiousness and this need for certainty and the need for control. I feel like certainty also goes along with control.
Of what's to come, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times when we do breath work, it's, it's maybe difficult to think about these emotions that we're going to be dealing with. And so not knowing or not having a sense of how that's going to go or how it's going to feel can be, debilitating in some sense. And you've developed a way of kind of moving through those and getting past that uncertainty and building a strength towards that. So while it is probably your, what
it's
you would
definitely
say,
one of mine.
your core, probably your chief, the number one.
You think it's my chief?
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay.
I don't know.
I can agree with that. I can agree with that because that's actually what brings up the most probably activation in my system is if I don't have some sense of certainty. So yeah. And what's funny is the next one is uncertainty.
And variety.
And variety is also being a core need.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think that other people need the exact opposite and like to have that uncertainty and imbalance. I would think that's what it sounds like to me.
I would think you were sometimes in the uncertainty because you tend to take things to the extreme.
Yeah, as I'm thinking about that, and it could be, to fully experience life.
Crave excitement, adrenaline rushes, engaging in like risky behavior to achieve them. I would say that is.
Well, it also talks about like struggling to maintain jobs and relationships, but I'm solid there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm loyal to a fault.
Yeah.
So in some ways, when I read that, I go, the first part I can see because I do like to do things to the extreme.
Yeah.
I do everything I do. It's over 100%.
Yeah.
It just can't be halfway.
Although I don't know that it's without some sense of certainty. So I don't know. I think when I think about somebody who maybe is relying on a core need of uncertainty in a way that is, like I want constant change. I can't stand things that I can plan ahead what it is and I can see where it's going. I need to have like that constant surprise.
That's some sort of secondary gain. Yeah.
Yeah. Then that could end up being something that might be more on the negative, And a lot of these, when I think back over looking at these, it's like, where in childhood did we kind of form a comfortability with some of these things?
Yeah. I mean, even with uncertainty, liking, adrenaline rushes and risky behavior, is definitely a thing that I was going after. But it doesn't feel to me at my core, the core need, it doesn't feel like it's a need, because I almost feel like the uncertainty, I had an arrogance that I was certain I was just going to get through it. If that makes any sense at all. I always just kind of knew that I'm somehow I'm going to get through.
Yeah.
So.
All right. The next one is significance. So if this is one of your core needs, you probably crave like recognition, attention from others in order to feel important, loved and seen and cherished. And it can be like a measurement of your own self-worth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one where, if you're constantly probably wanting to be the center of attention
or proving yourself,
accolades, certifications, degrees. Like, I wonder if there's like this need for self-importance or significance, especially to your peers, or maybe just to yourself. If that's like how you determine your value, is I need to have, I need to be seen and recognized for whatever it is that I'm doing. That I can see where that is. I don't think that's definitely not one
that doesn't resonate with me, but the next one kind of does. It's contribution, contribution. Oh, you know what? The next one is actually connection, or significance, and then connection. Yeah. The desire for close relationships and deep bonds with others. Connection is mine. I would say that's my number one or core need. Just feeling that need to have connection in a deep way to others really has come up a lot for me in these last, couple of years, going through some healing, not fixing, and trying to find ways that I wasn't free. And, recognizing the patterns and that brought that up for me was, really finding or feeling like people weren't there for me, or not connecting to me as deeply as I wanted to be connected to them, and not knowing why. Going back to childhood, I was able to kind of, do some healing and talk with, mom and figure these things out, because I was putting a lot of pressure onto Ellen, my wife, and it was kind of touching into one of those mommy wounds and recognizing where I was like, wow, why do I feel this way? And I started to recognize, like, because of a mother wound, where I lacked connection to my mother. Now in life, I just crave for that.
Seek it.
And in such a deep way, it's painful in such a deep way. And finding a way to heal that is giving myself that, giving myself the love and nurturing that part of me, and letting myself know, that the connection is there with myself. Building that connection with myself is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because now that I've done that, I've been able to connect deeper even with you, So it's funny, the connection, because the connection, I didn't know how deep it was until I went fully into it. I didn't really understand what connection was. Even though I really wanted it, it wasn't until I completely pulled it apart and understood why I needed it and what I was missing and all those things that created a space where I knew I had to fill. And showed me where I was weak and gave me a specific place to kind of really work on, So I found it super helpful to identify this, just like you did with love languages, and then identifying like physical touches or quality time is one of mine. Recognizing that, significance or connection being the primary one for me really gave me a place to focus in on and try to do some work and some healing.
Do you think before you became aware that was a really strong need for you, is that you would sacrifice, like your own needs in order to maintain a connection? Yeah,
it really does play into like a codependency type, role with all the relationships, because I'm constantly trying to prove my worth and
in order to get that
in order
connection.
to get that connection. Yeah. Sacrificing and doing things to my own detriment in order to maintain that connection. And not being, and having weak boundaries and all those things. So that because I was so fearful of that, losing that connection.
Yeah. The weak boundaries for sure. Especially if you're like, I just want this, and not being aware that this is like a basic need for you that's so important that you'll do anything to be able to maintain it. So no, I think that you're right. I think that you've made a lot of strides in being able to recognize, one, where that came from and that it exists. And then how do you do that for yourself?
Yeah, that was asking myself and finding, people who are hurt and lack love ask for love in the most unloving ways.
Yeah.
And, I was acting out and just reacting to things and lashing out, not ever really, I don't even think I really knew exactly what I needed.
Nope.
Yeah.
That's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Is because I think it's really important for each of us to recognize what our most important needs are, because a lot of times that's driving the behavior unconsciously. And so if this is one of yours, then you may be having loose boundaries. You may be sacrificing your own needs in order to just get this connection. But if you're not aware of it, then it just keeps driving the behavior.
Yeah. Becoming aware of it doesn't heal it on its own.
No.
Yeah. I mean, I became aware of it and had to question it and pull the threads and did a bunch of writing on it. And then I had to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And that was a difficult conversation, but what came from it was a level of understanding and compassion that I gained, because what I found was I didn't ever feel like I was held or loved or kissed or hugged as much. And I didn't recognize it at the time until I became older. And I recognized, yeah, that's what I've been missing. And that's what I crave is that touch. And that's why one of my, my number one love language is physical touch, and quality time is the second one. And they've switched back and forth. But more recently, quality time is more important. But forever, physical touch was the top of the list. And I had a conversation with Mom, and she gave me an explanation of her childhood, where sexual abuse was involved from a parent or a guardian. And it gave her a feeling that touching her own kids or loving her own kids was unsafe.
Yeah.
And wasn't good. And so because of that, she held back from me.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I mean, I was trying to heal it, and I was trying to figure out, like, why is this a thing? And then when I heard that, I mean, it really settled in deep, and I just gained such a level of compassion.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, man.
It's hard to give what you didn't get.
Yeah.
Or what you got, and that it was not safe. It wasn't love.
Yeah. And having an understanding and a conversation like that heals, doesn't fix, it heals, because it gave me, perspective. And I at the time, I wasn't able to understand that as a kid. But now as an adult, when I'm trying to go through these and break down these walls and figure out what the fuck do I want?
Yeah. What do I need and why?
Yeah. And I was searching for that, and it was a hurt. It was a trigger. If anybody would not want to give me a hug or a kiss, or would be like, oh, what's wrong with me, kind of a thing. And so it just developed this trigger within me. And hearing that, understanding that, it wasn't about me.
Yeah.
I mean, we say it time and time again. What other people do does not tell you how they feel about you. It tells you how they feel about themselves.
Yeah.
Tells you what's going on with them.
Yeah.
Doesn't tell you what's going on with you. Not easy to, know when you're a kid, but growing up and then building those connections back to our parents and trying to heal those wounds, man, that was a watershed moment for me, and really set the tone for a lot of other healing.
Started to untie that knot. Pulling out the threads, untying the knots.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see that.
So connection's
A big one.
big one.
Yeah.
The next one is growth. So what's the growth?
That is where we're constantly striving to learn more and be better. We may be perfectionists, high achieving, and always taking action, sometimes neglecting rest and relaxation in pursuit of that personal development. This is definitely one of mine. And I recognize it, and I know that it's a need. It's not one that, I used to be kind of ashamed of it. I used to think that there was something wrong with me, that I was malcontent because I was constantly seeking to know more, to do, I'm really interested in this now. I want to go learn about this. And I constantly have to expand and grow. And for a long time, I really thought that there was something wrong. And I was kind of chastised for being a seeker, like that was a bad thing. And I fought against it for a while. And then I realized like, this is just part of who I am. Although the negative part of it is kind of perfectionism, and thinking that, I've got to constantly be in movement. I can't relax. I can't do this because I constantly have to grow. So it's kind of been a balance of becoming aware that that is a core need for me. It's okay. But how do I look out for the pitfalls, which are the perfectionism. Perfectionism is like it's a disease. I feel like it's like a syndrome that can really cause a lot of anxiety, and depression. Because nobody and nothing is perfect. So it's an unattainable goal.
Yeah.
So I don't want to chase something to the detriment, but be able to be comfortable in wanting to grow and that, being just part of who I am. And I love that part of who I am. But I have to watch out for, you can relax. You don't constantly have to be doing, you're a human being, not a human doing. And not letting it overtake me by being unconscious of it.
It's a little bit tied in to certainty, I think.
Yes.
Because when I hear you say that, it's like you're trying to know, you wanted to know things, but there's growth in that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the certainty can drive growth. I want to become more, fluent in whatever this is that I'm doing. But definitely there is an amount of certainty that's tied with that. But I think that both of those things have served me. They've also hurt me in some ways, but they have both been there to serve as well. Yeah. And then the other one is contribution. So this being one of our core needs is like we thrive on giving to others.
Yeah.
Right? We feel deep-seated need to make a positive impact. And we may volunteer, be devoted to specific causes, and we like to make a difference.
Yeah.
So
have an impact on our communities and
help
people grow.
Yeah, this one is good.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't actually, if that's a core, need.
Like go for it.
Go for it. Yeah.
I think we're both sitting here because of that.
Yeah. It's becoming a core need. Yeah. As we become healthier.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. More aware, healthier. I think that, contribution, but it definitely can be something that drives you. So just being able to be aware of that and know like, okay, if that is one of your core needs, like go for it, do it, nurture it, that part of you.
Yeah.
But always wanting to find the balance, because if contribution is one of your core needs, you also need to look at, are you able to rest, relax, and not just constantly be in the doing, and be able to just know that this is a need and be able to meet it in a healthy way and be able to give back to others and it be something that's not taking from you.
Yeah.
So these are the things that like we want to be able to identify. What are the things that most kind of light you up? Like when you're hearing one of these, probably most of us are like, yes, that is also mine, or nah, not so much. And the point of it is to really kind of identify we usually have one or two top ones, and which ones are the ones that are probably driving you on the unconscious level.
Pointing towards places to work.
Places to work, to be aware of, to know that this is a need you have, that you might be putting that need on other people, and that may not be one of their needs.
Well, what about that? What about identifying other people's needs? Is that beneficial?
I think it's definitely beneficial because if you look at love languages, it's beneficial to know your partner's love language, right? Because
and know their core need.
Exactly.
Just as important, I think.
Because if you're like, hey, it's really important for my partner to have certainty. So then when you're planning something with them or doing something with them, that's really important for them to know where and how and, all of that.
They don't like surprises?
They don't like, do not throw me a surprise party, ever, And if you do, you think you're doing something great. And now I'm kind of mad.
Yeah. You've just been triggered.
Yeah. This is not a favor to me.
Yeah.
So it would really benefit you to know that I like certainty, So same in our relationships, same thing with our kids. When you're raising kids, to know they need to, have this aspect. They need to be able to constantly be surprised or whatever it is to be able to be aware of it and kind of work within it and not try to fit people into a box.
How do you identify another person's core needs? Because even identifying mine, I think today reading that, it jumps off the page to me, but I'm not sure that it jumps off to everybody.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to another person, really trying to dig into somebody else's core needs. But certainly I think finding your core need and really diving in fully to that will maybe help you better understand other people's needs and how maybe they're not meeting those, or maybe how they're not free, or may show you patterns, but certainly writing on it.
Yeah.
Or maybe even just asking the question.
Well, I think, think about when we're doing this and you're saying to me, oh, that's definitely one of yours, is that sometimes being the observer of someone, it may be easier for you to identify their core need or suggest hey, do you think this is something that's really important to you?
Well, I mean, you're very outward. We talk a lot about ourselves and we're not very shy when it comes to those things. So when we have tons of conversations and I pick up on little cues that you give off, and that's just one of the things, being around you enough, I can tell. So I think most people could probably pick up on it.
It's harder to identify sometimes your own, I think, because we're not constantly observing ourselves unless we've become really good at kind of strengthening the observer in us to look at a situation from a higher perspective. But if you're not, you're just kind of in your groove, you're just doing your thing. So it does take some time to kind of reflect. Yeah. So what are some of the ways that we can do that? And so we have a list of things like with certainty. It's like thinking about a time when you felt completely safe and at peace. What was going on? What contributed to that feeling of being safe and at peace? And the thing is to realize how often are you seeking out those types of situations or environments to create that sense of safety? How important is that for you? That it's I'm going in, I need to have a sense of safety. I need to know what's going on, all the time. So I think just being able, one, you can journal. Yeah. Take some of these questions. We'll put them in the show notes. But be able to look at them and just, kind of write down and it's just a self-reflection. So you can identify what your own core needs are. And then with uncertainty and variety, it's recalling a moment when you felt exhilarated by a new experience or change. So what was happening? Why did it excite you?
Yeah. Why are you looking for the thrill?
Yeah. And are you often finding yourself looking for the thrill? Yeah. Looking to get out of your routine,
For the variety. Yeah. And significance.
Reflecting on occasions where you felt so valued and so important.
Yeah, finding the context and what actions or recognitions you made to feel this way.
And how important is that for you to receive acknowledgement and validation from others?
Yeah, it's so important to be recognized. A lot of people want to be heard and seen.
Well, the funny thing with all of these is we all have these needs, all of them. These are basic needs, right? For all of us as humans. Yeah. It's not that you're not I don't ever want to feel significant. We all want to be. Oh, yeah. We all want to feel significant. We want to be seen. We want to be heard. But it's really recognizing which of them really pull you more. And you find yourself spending more of your time seeking that experience.
Yeah. I even took the time to rank mine in a sense for me, just to see how they ranked in level of importance to me.
Yeah. You know what? I think that's a good way to do it is really, you're not going to be that one's not for me. They're all probably for you on some level.
On some level.
But rank them, 1 to 6. Because all of them are necessary. The big one is with connection. Yeah. And, there was an article and a study that came out about connection in 2022, and it was by Nature Human Behavior. And it found that social isolation was connected to a 32% higher risk of all-cause mortality. So that's huge. So it's the loneliness. It was associated with a 14% increase in mortality risk. And then likelihood of dying from things like cancer or cardiovascular disease by 24 to 34%. So connection is so important for us as humans, to be able to find community or to be, even in close relationships with friends or loved ones, just to be able to have connection, to be able to talk with someone or bounce ideas off someone, to laugh with someone, is really, really important to our own mortality on a physiological level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an incredible statistic.
Yeah.
That,
I don't think we're aware of it. You think about COVID and everything that happened, there was just such isolation. And it was detrimental to our mental health and to our health just in general. So really considering connection, whether it's one of your top one or two, it's still an important one for all of us.
And we have less and less of it now with all these apps and things that don't require us to be face-to-face.
Oh, many of us working from home, right? So I love working from home, absolutely. But like for me, I create community experiences, or one of the things I started offering at Serenity Cove was specifically connection experiences, is to be with the person that you want to come in with and do something mindfully to actually connect, through meditation, breath work. But it's so important. And you just see people, it's connection from heart to heart, not just on a superficial level. But yeah, just being able to be with other people is super important to your mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other one was growth.
Yeah. Considering a time where you deeply engage in learning something new or improving a skill.
Yeah. What drove you to pursue this growth, and how did it make you feel?
Yeah. Do you constantly set goals for personal development?
Yeah. And that's definitely one. That's an important one for me. But definitely, even if it's not one of your top one or two, is just to consider that it is one of the 6.
Yeah, and it's a core need that while these other ones may be triggering and seem more important, it doesn't mean that these other ones don't have any significance.
No, they're all on your list. It's just which one or two are the most important. And really being aware of that, being aware that these are the things that are important to you, and how do you then find ways to bring that into your life, right?
Yeah.
And contribution, definitely one of the 6. Being able to kind of be with other people and contribute in a way that, it can just bring such fulfillment to some degree, whether it's talking to your neighbor and doing something nice for your neighbor, or doing something nice for a stranger. Even if it's not on the level of I have to change something in the world and contribute in this way, it's just little mini contributions to the people that we're around are really important. They're very nurturing. Sometimes the best way to get out of, depression is to go serve, to go help somewhere else.
To give.
Yeah, it can be very healing. And it also ties in with connection, So you don't contribute really in isolation, whether or not you're doing it anonymously or not.
Yeah.
You're still contributing. You're still finding a way to connect with other people or causes. So what are some of the tips? Because when we're talking about this, and what I really want people to do is to be able to take an actionable, tip, reflection with journaling.
Yeah, journaling is probably the most important, or the tool that I use most frequently. Maybe writing about each one of these and seeing which one connects to you most. Using some of these, we'll put them in the show notes, the questions that kind of stimulate and get those things moving for you, so you can see where some of these align for you, ranking them 1 through 6, and just seeing what's most important to you.
Yeah. I think, we're always going to say feel into your body. Where do you feel something light you up? Or you feel yeah, that's it, and really paying attention and being able to find ways to meet your own needs and knowing what the needs around with the other people around you are.
Yeah, I think that's one that I was thinking about just now too, was just the way you said that I picked up on, maybe easier for me to recognize you than for you to recognize your own.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you make that your own little thing where you're just going around going, I wonder what the core needs are of my son.
Yeah.
What's the core need of my wife? And try to fulfill those needs and see how things change.
Yeah. Be aware of it.
Be aware of it. Yeah. Actionable steps, making positive change in our life and our homes.
Yeah.
And making people feel seen and heard and fulfilling their core needs. I think most people would love for that. I mean, I would love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. So I think that was a good topic. And if anybody has any questions or you have any comments about core needs and maybe how to identify them in yourselves or others, like, please send us a comment and we'd love to hear from you.
All right. That's been another episode of Let That Shift Go podcast. I'm Noel.
And I'm Lena. Let us know what your questions are, and we'd love to use them in a future episode. Or check us out on Insta at Let That Shift Go, or visit our website, serenitycovetemecula.com.